Más o menos. Lucia.
Gracias.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
All right, welcome to episode 1 of the Universal Monster-a-Thon, sponsored by Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, where we discuss Drácula, the Spanish version. I am Ryan, and with me, as always, is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
No habla inglés en español, por favor.
No.
It's probably for the best. I bet my pronunciation on all that was super bad.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. But you know who's not super bad? Our patrons. Thank you to Señorita Abigail. Abigail de Once. No, wait, that...
Hiya! Happy Easter!
Once? Is that 11?
Uno.
Well, uno is 1, but what's like first?
I don't speak Spanish.
Abigail Uno. Breaker of the chains. All right, stop. Stop. Hard stop. Breaker of chains, mother of dragons, and
Logan,
the little patron. And Ben, the fourth patron of hope. And me, the fifth, the rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yeah.
Oh, she makes it rain. And Sierra, the sixth, the Keyblade patron. And thank you to the sponsor of this episode and the sponsor of the Universal Monster-a-Thon, Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at fourhorsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it into the store during the day shift, you can say hello to Ronald III, Krampus of Christmas. If you go in during the night shift, you can say hello to Senor Ronaldo the Third, the Spanish version of Ron, who only works at night.
Mustache.
It's just Ron with a mustache. You can actually go on a Four Horsemen at night, and they only speak Spanish. And if you can play Magic tournaments at night there, but only with Magic cards in Spanish. And they only sell Spanish comic books in Spanish. Okay. All right. And this is sponsored by Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming. They have sponsored several marathons. Before, we did the Blobathon, where we reviewed all the Blob movies, the Alienathon, where we reviewed all the Alien movies, the Bladeathon, where we reviewed all the Blade movies, and the Deadidathon, where we reviewed every Evil Dead film. So this is our 5th one, and we're not doing every Universal Monster movie.
We're just doing a lot of them.
And the reason we're starting with Dracula, the Spanish edition, is because we have already reviewed Dracula and Frankenstein, which you can go back. Actually, I'll link those episodes in the description. So if you want to get caught up and listen to those, you can just look in the description for links to our Dracula and our Frankenstein episodes. And I'm sure I have a playlist on YouTube as well. Okay, trigger warning. Nicolas Cage and Eugene Levy.
What?
The guy who plays Dracula looks just like Nicolas Cage.
It is Nicolas Cage. He's a vampire.
And the guy who plays Van Helsing looks just like Jim's dad. He even makes like the same like surprised facial expression.
I don't know who Eugene Levy is off the top of my head.
Jim's dad from American Pie.
Oh. Huh. Is he also a vampire?
No, he's a vampire hunter. Killer. Slayer. Okay, our history with this movie. Go.
God, back when I was in college, I used to watch a lot of Massacre, and he would do a Monster-a-Thon every year for October. And one year he covered like the Universal Monster movies. And in passing, he mentioned, oh yeah, there's a Spanish version of Dracula where they just took the same script and sent it to Mexico and said, here. And I was like, huh, well that's neat. And then at some point I had watched it, but I can't remember when. And then I watched it again for this.
They didn't film it in Mexico because it was filmed on the same set.
Yeah, I just like to say it was filmed in Mexico.
I had never seen it before, but Daniel had mentioned it several times. I was under the wrong impression about this movie.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition.
I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background.
Blah.
This
I
film...
love that poster.
Yeah, the poster's cool. This film was directed by George Melford and based on the script... It is based on the script that Garrett Fort wrote for the English version, Dracula 1931, starring Bela Lugosi. It was adapted into Spanish by Baltasar Fernandez Cue. The movie is based on the stage play written by Hamilton Dean, which is, of course, based on the novel written by Bram Stoker.
It's a Dracula Inception.
Yeah.
How many layers deep are we going to get?
The film premiered in Havana, Cuba on March 1st, 1931. And I don't know what the budget was. I read that they spent millions on it, but it was considered a financial flop. Okay, so let me talk about what I thought this movie was and then what this movie actually is. What I knew is that the people who made this movie used the same sets and costumes that the people who made Bela Lugosi's Dracula did. They come in at night, use the sets and the costumes, and make their movie. I thought that they were making a Dracula movie using the same resources as the other production. I didn't know that it's the same movie.
It's the same movie.
That they use the same script.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I started watching this, I'm like, oh, it's the same script. Okay. That was an interesting choice. And then once I started reading about the production of the movie, it wasn't even a unique thing to do back then. Apparently, in the time after silent movies kind of went away and sound movies became a thing, what Hollywood studios did to release movies to the foreign markets was exactly this. They would use the same production set and costumes and resources, and they would have two cast and crews, one doing English and then one doing Spanish or whatever the other language was.
They hadn't quite figured out dubs yet.
They hadn't. But this movie did so poorly that it was one of the major contributors to the rise of dubs.
Thanks, Dracula.
Let me actually read the specific thing that it says on the wiki. By October 1930... Okay, the Hollywood Reporter described that foreign language versions of films had been financial flops in every country, which led studios to dubbing picture films to reach non-English speaking markets. Melford's Dracula was among the last of these multilingual types of productions.
Can you imagine if that's what you were known for? The invention of dubs.
The director for this movie did not speak Spanish. He had to have an interpreter. So he couldn't even effectively communicate. Well, I mean, maybe he could, but he couldn't directly communicate with his cast. Well, maybe some of them spoke English. That's an assumption on my part, but...
Now that I know this, all I can picture is like some little Spanish dude going up to the actors going, listen to this gringo. Or don't listen to this gringo do this.
Yeah.
The secret director.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Okay, structure and themes. Before we get into this movie, I think we both rewatched the Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Yeah.
Do you have like any updated thoughts or feelings on that movie? Not really.
No, not really. I mean, I still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I still really like it for, especially what it is and what it's led to.
Yeah.
I do think watching these back to back, and we'll probably get into this, probably under structures, like what a person can do with the same script but using slightly different shots.
So just what are your... I also don't have like any revelations about the English movie either. So what are your kind of general thoughts and reactions to Dracula?
I knew what it was going in, and I purposely watched it the Spanish version first. Because I'm like, if I watch the Bela Lugosi version first, I'm not going to want to watch the other.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And I do not recommend that at all.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to want to do it. Because I'm already having to read subtitles, which I don't like to do. I don't know what my issue is. I get sidetracked super easy, so it leads to a lot of rewinding and a lot of pausing, which isn't conductive to a good movie-going experience.
No.
But watching them back-to-back, you get to see like some neat little things. I think that the Spanish version had some slightly... And I don't know if this was a director thing, or if this had something to do with like actor recommend. It had to be the director, because it's the way the movie shot is. There's some slightly more dynamic shots.
I feel like a lot of the cinematography...
that's the word I was looking for.
Was wider.
Yeah. And
he would take... Instead, where like in the other version, they would kind of jump from different perspectives in a room. The Spanish one, they would just like frame the whole room. Yeah. And then just show the people moving around inside. Which sometimes I think worked and sometimes I think didn't.
Yeah, there jump cuts. There were a lot of jump cuts in the original, in the English one.
Okay, so from here on, the Bela Lugosi one we're just going to call Dracula, and this one is Spanish Dracula.
Spanish Dracula.
Okay. So like one particularly I didn't like in the Spanish Dracula, the scene where Van Helsing notices that Dracula doesn't have a reflection in the mirror in the cigar box. Mm-hmm. It's when Dracula is talking to Mina/Ava, and Van Helsing is noticing it in the mirror in the cigar box. The entire room is framed, and unless you know what he's doing, you don't really understand what's happening until it jumps to the next frame. Yeah. It was weird. Yeah. And also, I should have mentioned this in background. The director for this, George Melford, when he came in every day, he watched what they filmed for Dracula. Yeah. And then he used that
as a template.
Yeah, for what they did in Spanish Dracula. The other big difference, this movie is almost 30 minutes longer than Dracula, and I feel like a lot of the things, just it's almost there's little changes to the dialogue and some things are expanded, but mostly it's a lot of the performances are a lot more dramatized and drawn out. Mm-hmm. For example,
very telenovela.
Yeah,
I can't say the word.
You said it.
Oh, is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
I mean, somebody who is fluent would roll it.
Yeah.
But I can't roll it. Telenovela.
We need Peggy Hill.
Yeah. No. So the one that bothered me a lot was the scene where Van Helsing shows Dracula the mirror in the cigar box. Mm-hmm. In the original, in Dracula, Van Helsing just says, "Look," and then Dracula looks and immediately smacks it out. But it takes like a full 60 seconds in Spanish Dracula. Like Dracula like looks at it and looks at it and looks at it and looks at it, and then he takes like 2 steps backwards, and then there's a pause, and then he lifts his cane and he just smacks, and it's like everything in Spanish Dracula takes longer.
It's true.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Okay, let's go to characters and let's talk about Conde Dracula, played by Carlos Villieres.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, aka somebody who must have been an ancestor of Nicolas Cage, because he looks just, rather, Nicolas Cage looks just like him.
Have I never told you that Nicolas Cage is a vampire theory?
You have, yes.
Okay, this just makes me think of that. It's just confirming it even more.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is actually a vampire.
So he was actually Spanish. He was from Spain, the actor who played Dracula. What were your thoughts? I think I have some thoughts, but why don't you kick us off?
Even though I watched this first, I couldn't help but keep comparing him to Bela Lugosi, which isn't fair, because that's a very iconic performance.
Arguably, like, maybe like the most iconic horror movie performance. Like, it's up there.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's at least in the contender for the top 5.
Yeah.
And then you telling me that the director was watching the English one, and then... Because a lot of times I was going, oh, he's trying to do that Lugosi stare, he's just not as good.
Yeah.
But now it's hearing... And I'm sure that was probably in the script. Dracula stares intently for 15 seconds or whatever. But at the same time, I'm like... That's all I can think in my head when I'm watching it. Is... It's not as good as Bela Lugosi's.
I had trouble taking this one seriously. Partially because I just kept picturing him turning into Nicolas Cage's Dracula in Renfield, like, in my mind.
I'm sure that would have harshed my mellow if I had made that connection.
But it also just like... Here, let me actually just like pull up a picture of him. Go to images.
Blah.
Yeah, like this is a totally Nicolas Cage.
That really does look like Nicolas Cage now that you say that.
And that was... I just had like this image... I have to save this because now I have to put this in the YouTube version. But I just couldn't take him seriously because he was just making these goofy ass faces the entire movie. And he's just... You're right, it's not fair to compare him to Bela Lugosi, but it's literally the same character and the same script, so how could you not?
I'm going to be charitable with my interpretation here. Bela Lugosi was very clearly going for menacing in his performance.
Look at this one.
I think he was going for unhinged. Is what it was coming across to me was he's playing Dracula as almost like an unhinged animal, where Bela Lugosi was going, I'm going to play that very reserved, dark man who has these brief moments of anger when he's caught. You know, like the slapping of the mirror. Mm-hmm. And that's in the script too, but if I, like, just going off of facial acting.
I can see what you're saying, and yeah, there's a pretty good chance you might be right, but I think it was probably a mistake to try to play Dracula as unhinged when you're acting across from the people playing Renfield, who are going really unhinged.
I have a lot more to say about Renfield.
I do too, and a lot more positive to say. So actually, let's skip ahead and let's go to Pablo Alvarez Rubio, who played Renfield.
Spanish people can scream.
I think this guy was my favorite performance in the movie, and I don't know if I would say he's as good. I think the guy...
The English Renfield was also really iconic. That's a big issue with this movie. If you're going in... It's almost impossible to go into blind. Mm-hmm. Is you're going up against some of the most iconic performances and shots. Like, on the boat, Renfield's laughing the English one.
Yeah.
In this one, he also laughs, but it's like behind like a glass frame, and Dracula's rising out of his coffin. It's shot very differently. Where in the English version, it's Renfield at the bottom of some stairs, staring upward.
It was so creepy.
He's framed in shadows, and it's a heh 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 heh. I can't do it.
Yeah,
but you can hear it in your head. This Renfield was like he's in a room, he's watching Dracula come out of his coffin, and he's maniacally cackling. And same way when he's screaming, like when he's like in trouble or like when he's confined. It's very it's cranked up to 10.
So, the original was played by Dwight Frye, and he was amazing. I think this guy is also very good, maybe not as good, but there are also like a few moments in this movie where I thought he really got to stand out. The scene where he's talking about Dracula offering him all the rats, and he's yelling, "Rata! Rata! Rata! Rata!" That was pretty great. That's the one that... And then, I love the scene where he comes into... Martine brings him into Dr. Seward and Professor Van Helsing to do, like, the little interview in the study. And Professor Van Helsing's like, "Oh, I heard you went to Oxford." And Renfield sits down and was like, "Yes, I got my bachelor's of blah, 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 and you're blah, blah, blah. And I got my blah... Oh, excuse me." Gets the fly. That scene was great.
And then, like, everyone's watching him, he's just like, too small.
But yeah, I thought Renfield was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Eduardo Arozmina. I'm sorry, I know that's not right. As Van Helsing. This is another one that
James' dad.
Yeah, I had trouble taking him seriously. What did you think?
Again, he's going up against a very iconic performance. Mm-hmm. Against a dude who got to play multiple roles, got to play Van Helsing more than once.
Yeah. Well, in Dracula, like Bela Lugosi as Dracula, Dwight Frye as Renfield. I don't remember who played Van Helsing, but those are like 3 of the most iconic horror roles of like all time.
So it's very not fair. I feel like this is going to be not fair, the review.
This guy just walked in on his kid humping an apple pie.
We should make that into a meme. We should like put like his head and then like goofy Dracula face on Jim.
Do you know Jason Biggs plays Leonardo in the 2012 TMNT show?
No, he fucking doesn't.
He does. He does.
I'm never going to be able to take this movie seriously.
And Raphael is played by Sean Astin, Samwise Gamgee.
Okay.
Yeah. That show has like a crazy cast. Okay. I'm not talking about Ninja Turtles. I'm talking about Dracula. All right. And then there's a bunch of other characters. I don't know how far we want to go on the other ones, but
Juan Harker.
I did not. I don't like the guy who played Jonathan Harker in either movie, really.
Because it's not Jonathan Harker.
Yeah.
It's also not Mina.
Yeah, same.
So
I thought that...
But that's what we get for being book nerds.
Yeah. I actually thought the girl in Spanish Dracula was a little better. She seemed a little less whiny.
She's also so pretty.
Yeah, she is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
I was sitting there going, man, I wish I was a vampire so I could get a Spanish wife.
And then I did want to mention Manuel Arbo, who plays Martine. Every time I watch Dracula, Martin, that orderly, he cracks me up so much.
Yeah.
Why are you shooting? There's a big bat!
I gotta get that dang near bat.
And this, like, in this version, the character is a little more reserved, but still very put upon and very funny.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Okay, so let's go to scary shit. Is this movie scary?
It's scary that I think Nicolas Cage might actually be a vampire.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the haunting imagery from Dracula, it's not as effective in this movie just because I've already seen it in Dracula. Like, Dracula is not what I would really call like a scary movie, but it has very creepy imagery, like Dracula's hand reaching out of the coffin.
Yeah.
The scene where he attacks the flower girl, which they leave out of the Spanish Dracula for I have no idea what reason.
I'm sure if we were from the 1930s, we'd be shitting our pants.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, this picture can talk.
Okay. But yeah, it's not scary.
Oh my god, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz, Daniel, what is your king for Spanish Dracula?
Probably Renfield.
Renfield is also my king.
I thought he did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
It was of all the people who had to play against iconic roles,
he did the best out of.
He did the best out of them.
I agree. And again, that was Pablo Alvarez Rubio.
And again, I don't think that it's probably not fair for us to be making these comparisons.
Yeah, like if I was cast to play the night shift version of Dracula against Bela Lugosi, like I'm going to do a not great job too. So,
and I'm sure there's people out there that are like, maybe there's Spanish speakers out there that would be going, man, these performances are so much better. You guys. But at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, but I can't really tell for most of that.
Yeah, and it is harder to evaluate a dramatic performance in a language you don't speak. Although I felt like it was a little easier in this movie because I actually kind of, in some points, I stopped reading the subtitles and just started paying more attention to the actors because I already knew what they were saying because I had just watched the same damn movie.
Pablo!
But yeah. Koontz.
Even knowing that what I know about, because I knew what it was going in, I was expecting it to be slightly more different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had seen frames where the shots were a little different. I'm like, oh, I bet that'll be interesting, and it wasn't different enough.
I thought that the experience of watching the same movie with the same script, but, a different cast and different cinematography was entertaining for about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I got bored.
Yeah. So
I'm going to say that's my experience as my Koontz. I kind of want to say Dracula is my Koontz.
Kind of just Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
We need to do more Nicolas Cage vampire movies.
Sure. Okay, rankings. I have not ranked this, so let's do yours and let's find where Dracula is.
It's going to be a little bit below that.
Okay, so currently, Dracula is your number 53, below Happy Death Day and above The Ghost in the Darkness.
It's probably going to be pretty low. I liked the Virgin Suicides more.
Which do you prefer, this movie or Kenan and Kel, Two Heads Are Better Than None? And again, if you want to look at our rankings, there is a link in the description of the episode to our Google Drive with our rankings.
I feel like I'm being really unfair to this, but it's even lower than that.
Yeah.
Do I...
The Mist TV show.
I think it's better than the Mist TV show.
Okay.
Is it better than Dominion prequel to The Exorcist?
I don't know.
I'm going to put it right between those two. I was tempted to put it below The Mist, but just because I called that twist so early on.
Yeah.
The gay friend being the rapist.
Yeah. Such a lovely little show.
I hate that made me feel so smart.
Okay, so it's your new number 79, below Dominion prequel to The Exorcist and above the Mist television series.
And a lot of what I enjoyed in this movie is just because of stuff I enjoy in the English version.
Yeah.
And in that case, I'm just going to watch the English version.
Same.
So
I honestly, just looking at it as a movie, I have a lot of the same criticisms and good things.
Yeah.
Compliments
But
and
it's minus
criticisms.
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. Okay, so currently I have Dracula as my number 32, below Hellraiser and the original Blob, the Steve McQueen Blob. Okay, so it's not better than Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland was pretty good.
Yeah. It's not, I'm not putting it above Ring Kazenban.
If Ring Kazenban had skipped the incest plot, it'd probably be a lot higher.
I'm not putting it above Season of the Witch. I'm going to put it as my new number 67, below Kakurenbo and above Mermaid Forest 2003, which is the series. Okay, so that's where I'm putting it. Cool. And then rankings, homework. What modern movie would you like to have the Spanish Dracula treatment?
Renfield.
It's too easy. Too easy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have Nicolas Cage stay as Dracula.
Okay.
But speaking Spanish.
Okay. Just whatever the next Star Wars movie is. Then I get 2 Star Wars movies. Okay. Further reading. So I kind of had... I was kind of thinking of Powers of Darkness while I was watching this. Powers of Darkness is much better.
Yeah. Powers of Darkness is... I also think it's more interesting from... Like, this is interesting to know that they used to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And that its failure led to dubs. That's kind of neat to learn. But the stuff you learn about, like, the writing of Powers of Darkness...
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how it came together. Mm-hmm. Like, that whole, intro section from when we listened to Powers of Darkness.
Yeah.
And, all of that.
But if you like Dracula meta lore, then Powers of Darkness would be something.
It's like S tier, and this would be like C, maybe.
Yeah.
C minus.
I think this movie, it'd be more, for most people, it'd be more beneficial to watch a YouTube video about this movie.
Which is how I found out about it.
Rather than actually sitting down and watching this entire movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so upcoming on the Horror Babylon this Sunday, we're doing our Attack of the Mutant watch-along. And the next Sunday is our next book-isode where we are reading Night of the Living Dummy 2. And then our next 2 bonus episodes on Thursday, August 15th is our next Universal Monster-a-Thon movie episode where we're watching The Mummy, the original from 1932 with Boris Karloff. And then we're doing a real new movie the next week, August 22nd, where you're going to hear our thoughts on Alien Romulus. Cool. And you know who I don't want to alienate, because I love them so much, our patrons. Thank you to Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben the Fourth, Patron of Hope, and Mia the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain.
Oh, hold on, I thought of a better one. And the Remus to our Romulus is our patrons. And Sierra the Sixth.
Shouldn't you be saving that for Alien Romulus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll save it. It's Sierra the Sixth, the Keyblade patron. It just sounds like me slurping Jello in my mouth, turning it back into a liquid. Yeah. And again, this episode is sponsored by Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at fourhorsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to Ronald the Third, Krampus of Christmas. They subscribe to our Patreon at the Losers Club tier, which means they get to choose 2 movies per month for us to review. And for the next several months, we are going to be covering Universal Monster movies. So, yeah, that's cool. All right, thank you for watching Dracula and recording with me tonight.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. And thank you to our patrons. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/The Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.